When I started kindergarten, my sisters were in the elementary school, which was a big building. They had the elementary school and the junior high school. They were connected with a walk bridge between the two streets.
Where was that?
That was on 109th Street where I lived,
Okay.
but it was 2 streets away. But the kindergarten was in an old store that was across the street, and I don't remember the teachers. I just remember my mother used to drop us off, but my mother had a wonderful habit. During recess or lunch period, she would come every day with a bag of fruit, and she would hand it out to the teacher and to the children, and she would wait until we'd have our lunch, and then she would go back home. And it was in walking distance, and she would pick us up when school was over, so we wouldn't have to cross Second Avenue, which was a busy street. So she would come and pick us up.
Wow.
That I remember.
Right. Okay. What about middle school and high school? Those were further
Well, we
away?
moved, my father had lost his job, and one of his cousins had a grocery store all the way out in Brooklyn. We lived in Manhattan then. And he took my father in as a partner. So we moved to Brooklyn, and we had a small apartment, I remember. And then my mother had another son while we were living there. She had another baby, my brother Irving. And my mother used to work in the store as well as my father. And since my two older sisters were in school and I was just beginning, going to first and second grade, I used to go a half a day. And when I came home early, I used to take care of my brothers. And then my father decided that wasn't the type of work he wanted to do. So he went into the city again and he got himself a job. He used to be an operator on ladies' clothing. And he became affiliated with a very, very good outfit. So they were able to get a larger apartment around the corner.
Back in Manhattan?
No, in Brooklyn,
Okay.
just around the corner from where we lived there. And there I remembered going to regular school, which was like 2 streets away. And I befriended my friend Florence, who I knew until a few weeks ago when she passed away from 2nd grade.
Wow.
And I remember taking my brothers to the movies. We used to walk, and at that time we paid 10 cents to go in. And my younger brother used to sit on the seat, on the arm of the seat because he couldn't see. He used to sit on the arm alongside of me, and we would go to the movies. And then my father stopped working for them, and he used to work. And then after they lived there for a while, just saying, we moved to a larger apartment around the corner, and that's where I actually grew up. I went to an elementary school, and then I went to a high school, and the high school, my brothers and sisters went to the same high school. They all graduated from the same school.
All in Brooklyn.
All in Brooklyn.
So that's where you met Grandpa?
No, not really. I met Grandpa. I went, in fact, I still have the invitation. My friends, and one of my friends was related to my Sweet 16 party. They made a surprise party for me about 2 months after my birthday. And I still have the invitation that they sent to High if he would come to a surprise party, and if he has some nice friends, he could bring them along. But since the weather was pouring and raining that night, and the only means of his getting to my house was by walking or taking the trolley car, he never showed up. And years later, I noticed when we got married, I went to pick up his stuff to bring to my apartment. I found the invitation. He had saved it all these years. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I showed it to my daughter Bonnie. She couldn't believe that he was invited to my Sweet 16 party.
Right.
But I didn't meet him then. About a year or two later, I was walking with my friends in the shopping center, and he was walking with his friends. And one of my friends was his cousin, so she introduced me to him. And at that time, I was going to school at night. After I had graduated, I was going to school at night. And one day, my mother and father were having their apartment, the kitchen linoleum placed. And in the afternoon he came into my mother's house and he wanted to know where I was. And my mother didn't think he was Jewish because he was blonde and he looked Polish. So she wasn't anxious to tell him where I was. But he started to speak to her in Jewish, so she felt comfortable.
In Yiddish?
And he spoke to her in Yiddish because he realized that she was sort of hesitating. So he told her who he was. And then when I came home from school, he said he would be back the next day. And after that, I had seen him every single day after that. He used to meet me at the subway station at night when I came home from school and walk me home.
Mm-hmm.
And then on weekends, we used to go to the ball game. One of his brothers had a car at that time. He would take us to the ballpark. What a fabulous thing about my husband, he played basketball for 2 of the temples. And on Saturday night, they would have basketball games. So he was allowed to invite guests. But after the basketball game, they would have a dance and refreshments at the temple. So I would invite some of my friends because his brothers used to come there.
Right.
And before I knew it, we were seeing each other quite regularly. But we couldn't think of marriage because I had 2 older sisters that weren't married yet. But then one of my middle sister got married, and about 6-8 months later, we were married. And we had a beautiful wedding at the temple.
She broke the rules for you.
Yeah, but my Aunt Evelyn wasn't married at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I
Yeah.
want to check something. Let's take a 1 second break. Okay.